Let's get right into it. Number 8. Dead people at the dinner table. Imagine you're enjoying a hearty family meal. Roasted meat, fresh bread, some questionable 14th century gravy, and across from you sits your dead uncle. Not metaphorically, not as a portrait. His actual mummified body is propped up in a chair. Pass the potatoes, Uncle William. This wasn't some fringe horror movie tradition. In parts of medieval Europe, especially in rural areas, families kept deceased relatives around during special events. Sometimes they'd dress them up. Sometimes they'd just let them sit there looking like they were trying really hard to remember the name of the person across from them. The reasoning? Death was seen less like a final goodbye and more like, oh, he's just quiet today. Ancestors were still part of the community, and showing respect meant keeping them included. Of course, there was also a dash of superstition. People believed that snubbing a dead family member could bring bad luck, bad harvests, or just ghost problems. And since these cultures didn't have Netflix or professional therapists, they made do by talking to corpses like they were alive. It was both a coping mechanism and a weird version of guest etiquette. Now, was this unsanitary? Absolutely, but hygiene wasn't exactly medieval Europe's strong suit to begin with. This was a time when bathing was optional, and germ theory was as believable as unicorns. So, sure, have your mummified grandpa watch you chew? What's the worst that could happen? Basically, family dinners used to be part meal, part seance, and 100% nightmare fuel for modern guests. Number 7. Urine laundry service. Let's say you just spilled wine on your only tunic. Modern solution? Toss it in the washing machine with some detergent. Ancient Roman solution? Dunk it in a vat of pee. Yes, human urine. In ancient Rome, fullers, the professional laundry people, collected buckets of urine from public urinals and households to clean clothes. Why? Because urine contains ammonia, which breaks down grease and grime. Romans figured this out centuries before chemistry class made it boring, and they turned it into a whole industry. People even paid a urine tax, the vectigal urinae, to supply enough cleaning fluid for the city's laundry. Picture walking through a Roman street, passing large clay jars at every corner where people were contributing. Then those jars get carted off to a laundry workshop, where workers stomped the pee into cloth with their bare feet like it was some cursed version of winemaking. And the thing is, it worked. Clothes came out cleaner, whiter, and smelling. Well, let's not talk about the smell. Rome didn't have the modern spring fresh marketing gimmick. It was more like, congratulations, you smell like slightly less sweaty armor. So, next time you complain about folding laundry, remember, at least your whites weren't washed by a guy knee-deep in the neighborhood's communal bladder output. Number 6. Smoking babies. Yes, you read that right, smoking babies. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, some doctors recommended giving babies cigarettes or even cigars for health reasons. They thought the smoke could help with asthma, bronchitis, or just strengthening the lungs, which is like saying fire helps you stop getting burned. There are documented cases of parents proudly puffing smoke into their child's face, believing it was medicinal. Some even used special smoking tubes to funnel the smoke directly where it was needed. This was before anyone realized inhaling burnt plant matter might not be the ticket to longevity. And the thing is, this wasn't fringe medicine. Ads for tobacco products literally targeted parents, promising robust, hardy children who could breathe like a champion. Fast forward to now, and it sounds insane, but back then, doctors wore suits and had the kind of mustaches that screamed, "Trust me," so people listened. It's one of history's finest reminders that just because a man in a white coat tells you something doesn't make it good advice. Basically, if your great-grandparents made it to adulthood, it's because they survived a bizarre babyhood smoking regimen, and probably several other historical health disasters. Number 5. Mummy medicine. Imagine having a headache and your local apothecary hands you ground-up mummy. Not mummy as in mother, but actual powdered Egyptian corpses. Welcome to European medicine between the 16th and 18th centuries, where mummies weren't just for museums, they were a legitimate health supplement. The logic, if you can call it that, went like this. Mummies were ancient, preserved, and exotic. Therefore, their bodies must contain some kind of mystical life force that could heal ailments. Merchants imported mummified remains, real or fake, from Egypt, ground them into a brownish dust, and sold them as a cure-all for everything from bruises to epilepsy. If they couldn't get genuine mummies, they'd just dry out recently dead criminals and, voila, locally sourced mummy. Royalty and commoners alike consumed the stuff, either mixed with wine or sprinkled on food like some sort of horrifying cinnamon. Even Shakespeare's contemporaries were in on it, with references to mummy powder popping up in plays and poetry. And since people back then were also into blood drinking for vitality, nobody batted an eye. So yes, your ancestors might have literally swallowed corpses to feel better, and if that doesn't make your modern multivitamin look classy, I don't know what will. Number 4. Animal court trials. Picture this. It's the Middle Ages. You're a judge, you've had your breakfast of questionable bread, and today's case is a pig accused of murder. And no, pig isn't a mean nickname for the defendant, it's an actual farm animal. From the 13th to 18th centuries, animals in Europe could be, and often were, put on trial for crimes. Pigs, dogs, goats, even insects. If a pig bit someone, it could be arrested, put in a cell, assigned a lawyer, and then brought before a jury. Entire towns would gather to watch these legal spectacles, complete with prosecutors making serious arguments like, "Your Honor, the goat knew exactly what he was doing." The outcomes ranged from fines to execution, sometimes in the same gruesome ways humans were punished. And the really wild part? These weren't just symbolic. Communities genuinely believed animals had moral responsibility. This was a society that treated a chicken stealing grain as a full-blown legal drama. Why? Probably because it reinforced the idea that justice was all-encompassing. Nothing escaped the law, not even the family cat. Also, entertainment options were limited. Netflix binges didn't exist, so watching a donkey stand trial for public drunkenness was apparently the next best thing. Basically, medieval Europe managed to combine law, theater, and absurdity in a way even modern courtroom TV can't top. Number 3. Lead face powder. Want to look beautiful for your 18th century Instagram post, also known as standing still for 4 hours while someone paints you? All you need is a generous dusting of lead-based face powder. For centuries, especially during the Renaissance and Georgian periods, pale skin was the ultimate status symbol. It meant you didn't have to work in the sun like a peasant. The problem was, people took pale to extremes, slathering on white makeup made from lead carbonate. It gave a flawless porcelain look, while slowly poisoning the wearer. The side effects included hair loss, rotting teeth, skin damage, and, eventually, death. But because beauty trends are like a stubborn rash, people doubled down when symptoms appeared. If your skin was breaking out from the lead, you'd just put on more lead to cover it. It was the makeup equivalent of fixing a hole in the boat by drilling another hole. Some women, and men, wore so much of the stuff their skin literally peeled away underneath, but hey, looking like a freshly baked ghost was worth it, at least until your jaw started falling apart. Basically, your ancestors were risking their lives for what amounts to the 1700s version of a good lighting filter. Number 2. Dancing plagues. You know that moment when you hear a song so good you can't stop moving? Now imagine that feeling. But it lasts for days, you can't control it, and people around you are literally dying from it. Welcome to the dancing plagues of medieval Europe. The most famous outbreak happened in 1518 in Strasbourg, when a woman named Frau Trophea stepped into the street and started dancing. No music, no party, just intense, non-stop grooving. Soon, dozens joined her, then hundreds. The dancing lasted for weeks, with participants collapsing from exhaustion, strokes, or heart attacks. And yet, they kept going until they physically couldn't. Back then, no one knew what was going on. Theories ranged from demonic possession to hot blood to the wrath of a saint. Modern researchers have suggested mass hysteria, aka psychogenic illness, or ergot poisoning, a fungus on rye bread that can cause hallucinations and spasms, which, yes, means a bad sandwich might have started a medieval flash mob of doom. City officials, thinking it would help, even hired musicians to play for the dancers, assuming they just needed to dance it out. Spoiler, that did not work. If anything, it turned the world's strangest medical crisis into a very grim music festival. Basically, the 1500s gave us Coachella, but without the bathrooms, hydration stations, or survival odds. Number 1. Sharing bathwater. Here's your ancestors' version of family bonding, everyone taking turns in the same tub of water. And yes, they went in order, usually dad first, then mom, then the kids, oldest to youngest. By the time it got to the baby, the water was more soup than bath. In many European households before indoor plumbing, filling a tub was a chore. You had to haul water from a well, heat it over a fire, and then pour it into a basin. That's hours of labor for one bath. So naturally, you'd make the most of it. Everyone hopped in, one after another, and no one complained much. The phrase, "don't throw the baby out with the bathwater," actually comes from this tradition. The water would get so murky by the time the baby was in that you could, in theory, lose track of them in there. It was half joke, half horrifying possibility. And remember, people didn't bathe daily back then. This might be a once-a-month ritual, so you'd better savor that lukewarm stew of your relatives' skin cells while you could. Modern spa day, this was not. Basically, your great-great-great-grandparents' self-care routine was marinate in your family's dirt and hope for the best.